Oh, hey there. I was just playing on my balalaika. I don't know how to play the balalaika, but I do know about cartoons and animation, so let's talk about Helluva Boss. It's a show that I've been keeping my eyes on and basically have been watching whenever it comes into my recommended YouTube feed. And I wanted to start the channel back up again, reviewing the show and talk about if it's any good or not, starting with the letter A for art, because I don't know how to do transitions. The art in the show is iconic. Plain and simple, Vivzy has a very unique style. I really like her work, and pretty much anybody who, exists on the internet can tell you that, oh, look, that's Vivzy's style if you showed them a picture of, her work. And, it's very abstract. It's cool. It emphasizes a lot of reds and greens and purples and yellows. It's very, funnily enough, hellish. The lines are very curvy and abstract, and honestly, the character designs are just great. The backgrounds, oh hey, that starts with B, are what I feel carries Helluva Boss the most. Some people say it should be the story, some say it should be the characters, but honestly, I feel like the backgrounds are pretty much what carries the show. This great quality and level of detail and abstract, and it always is able to portray where you are in the show, where the characters are, what they're doing, and still maintain a level of interest to a point where it doesn't look very plain. The human world, when they actually show it, is very distinct enough to, differentiate itself from Hell, and Hell itself is just full of reds and greens and purples, in Vivzy's style, and it really kind of separates the two worlds and makes you know where the characters are at all times. There's enough abstraction in each scene as well to make the locations interesting enough without taking away any of the characters or hinder the clarity of the location itself. 10 out of 10, the backgrounds are probably the best part of the show, no argument, and you can't make me think otherwise. I'd argue that the character designs are also on the same quality level as backgrounds because, it's Vivzy, very iconic again. The silhouettes that she makes are very strong, and even the background characters are kind of like, hey, I've seen that background character before, and it's very just nice. It has a lot more depth than a lot of people want to give it credit for. Really, the biggest issue I have with the character designs in general are when the line art colors for some of the characters aren't black. And I know it sounds super nitpicky because, it's just a line, who cares? But if you look at characters like Andrelphis, I think I'm saying that right, and the cherubs from season 1, they stand out a lot and it looks very off-putting. Andrelphis is probably the worst of these because it's a white outline, kind of bluish white. But either way, it makes himself like he was just transposed from a different show entirely. Like he doesn't belong in the show simply because of that outline. It makes him stand out so much that it just looks bad. I understand he's supposed to have some sort of ice theme, but the design would not be hindered at all if he had a black outline instead of the ice blue one he has now. It'd be okay if every other character had their own unique outline color, this criticism would be completely moot, but the fact that every main character and almost every other character in the show has a black outline, it is just a criticism that has to be noted because that's not consistent to the show. The cherubs from the first season, you could probably argue that they're fine because they're from heaven, and if all of the characters from heaven have those unique different colored outlines, that would be okay. But if the other characters from heaven don't, if I see one character from heaven have a black outline, I'm going to be furious. I mean, not literally furious because this is a TV show on YouTube, but I would still be very upset at the team's inability to stay consistent when it comes to actual art design and character consistencies. But we'll see. We haven't seen anything else from Heaven, so it's all up in the air for now. Basically, if I were to stop here, I would give Helluva Boss just an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. But the writing is so poor, I have to give this show a lower score. The writing in this show is just not good. The main cast consists of Blitz, Moxie, Millie, Luna, Stolas, but you might as well say the show is just about Blitz and Stolas at this point. The rest of the characters have been basically sidelined as a means to further the latter's character growth. Even in episodes that should have been about furthering characters like Millie or Luna or Octavia, due to the content and the theme of the episodes, it just completely diverges into giving Blitz or Stolas. Characters like Luna and Millie have had so much time to grow as characters and were given the potential with, for example, when you introduce Millie's family and focus on the place of her upbringing. You would have thought it would give more into her backstory and let her become an actual character with personality personality and struggles instead of just being Moxie's wife, which is basically what she has been throughout the entire show. Viv's announced she'll be getting her own episode soon, but I highly doubt it's actually going to put a spotlight on her and instead focus more on the Blitz train they've been riding for the past 2 seasons. You know, when I started writing for this video, I had the entire show playing in the background to kind of help me give a refresher on the older episodes, and what I kind of got to understanding is each character type, you know, imp, bird, fish, etc., all kind of play a role in some kind of, and I guess everybody else is in the middle, but nobody really kind of explicitly explains, or there's no real detail showing outside of the birds and the imps what role everybody is. Hellhounds are kind of like a weird bodyguard, I guess, but not really, but they're also secretaries. I don't know. It's weird. And the fact of seeing like imps own what is basically another person, or anybody owning another person via hellhounds, of course, is just a very strange dynamic in the world. And, you know, of course, it's hell, you know, there might be some weird societal norms that it doesn't take part on Earth, so, you know, who cares? But it isn't explicitly stated, not outright stated or given hint at whatsoever on what these societal norms are. And I just find it really weird that owning a person via, you know, hellhound is normal in the show. I don't know. I just wanted to kind of bring that up. Basically, what I'm trying to say is a lot of the important details are just pushed to the side, and even to the point of important character details and interactions are pushed into newspaper articles and a 3-second clip of a text message. Yay! Who wants to read all of that when it could have, you know, been an actual conversation in some form or fashion, or shown to the audience without having to pause and read through a literal wall of text. Of course, there are other shows, professionally done shows at that have some sort of subtlety and foreshadowing in their shows. You know, oh, this person might be turning evil, or oh, this person's hinted at for coming back and all that. But when they hold important character details or interactions, they shouldn't be hidden into corners of the show or corners in the background, or just thrown aside for people to find if you're looking hard enough. Details like this should convey to the casual audience in some form of fashion. If you want to have something important come up and it has to like be important to the show, then don't hide it in a corner. It can be an Easter egg, or it can be in a newspaper article, but it has to be given in some form of fashion for the casual audience to understand what's happening, what's going on, and why it's important to them. Not some sort of blink and you'll miss it Easter egg that they usually put on there. And it's not just the lore or character details that the writing kind of falters at, but the tone and pacing as well. The show seems to be episodic with an overarching narrative, like most Western animation right now. That's not an issue. The issue lies in trying to tell a story and immediately moving on to a non-serious tone as if something important isn't currently happening. This occurs throughout the entire series, and it can be very tiring when you see a character begin to struggle with what they've gone through, and then haha, funny sex joke, come up, funny music, catchphrase, oh look, Moxie's crying on the floor. Stryker was such an interesting character for the show, only to be put down as some kind of self-loving joke in the same light as Chaz, another side character that was built up, thrown out the door with a haha, my son is gay joke. And that joke didn't even fit, because Moxie obviously has a wife of Millie. He saw Millie. That joke doesn't fit in the context. It doesn't make any sense, so one, it wasn't funny, and two, it completely ruined the tension between Moxie and his father. Helluva Boss is obviously an adult comedy, but it's almost as if the writers need to shove that fact to the audience's face every time, every minute, with a swear or sex joke to remind you that it's an adult comedy. The jokes are very crude, they're not well thought out, and don't tell me it's because they're in hell, because that's not an excuse for childish jokes. You can make something funny without having to stick to the idea that they're horny demons, because that's not how comedy works. Things can be funny without needing to stick to the same gag every minute. And because pretty much every character on the show is making these types of jokes, it really waters down, 1, the impact of the joke, and 2, the uniqueness of each character. They're all making the same jokes, therefore, they are basically the same person. I know that's not completely true, but like I said, it just waters down the fact that they are all individual people with their own individual personalities. If they're all making the same jokes, everybody has the same humor, it doesn't bode well for the character writing. See, make Blitz as vulgar as you want, and that would be his spotlight in the comedic sphere of the show. If they all are different joke styles, then the audience would have something to look forward to when each of them makes their joke, because they would all be somewhat unique. There's also an issue with consistency in the writing, as in any development between two characters seems to immediately vanish in the next episode, and they begin to treat each other as if the writing crew decided to push a reset button after every big moment. Stolas and Blitz have so much drama and tension between them in some episodes, only to have them go back to flirting and acting like nothing happened. Luna and Blitz had a very touching episode that furthered their relationship as a father and daughter, showing that Luna can respect everything Blitz tries to do for her, only to turn back in the next episode to not caring and hitting Blitz again. If the series was completely episodic, I would understand, I wouldn't really care, but they were trying to add a story with character growth that they seemed to not take into any consideration anyways, so why make a story in the first place? If there's going to be a story, you need to add some sort of consistency in that story and character growth that stays within each episode. Just pushing a big reset button at the end of each episode, saying it's character growth and character development because you had something in the last episode happen, doesn't make it character development, it just makes it episodic with various cliffhangers that aren't going to be addressed at all. Overall, I feel like the show's quality explicitly is held back by its writing team. I didn't really talk about the animation itself because it's fine. The second season has a significant jump in quality compared to the first, so I can only imagine it will continue to get better as Vivz and her team learn how to collaborate and gain experience from the show. It has potential to be a really fun show if the team can learn to create something consistent in its writing and characters. If I could give any advice, it would be try to keep the consistent dynamic between characters as they grow and develop. Things can be silly and funny, but have them at least show some respect or tension that was made in the last episode if the two characters interact at all. Work on the humor, try not to have it cover up any serious moments that are going on, and try to understand how to balance the tone of what's going on and to not ruin any serious moments with a silly B-plot or a crude joke that kills the mood. I really want to like Helluva Boss, and I do plan to keep up with it, but the biggest issues throughout the years seem to remain and plague the show, and I really hope they can improve it for Season 3. So far the show is a solid 6 out of 10, and that's above average for those who think anything that isn't above an 8 is bad. Thank you all for listening to my little criticism of Helluva Boss. I hope Twitter doesn't cancel me for trying to point out the show's strengths and flaws, and I will see you later. I still can't play the balalaika.